Okay, well, welcome to this teaching from King's Church Whittle. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Ben Watts. Today we're starting a new series as a church. We're looking at rest, spiritual intimacy, and the elimination of hurry from our life, which is somewhat ironic given the current situation that we find ourselves in. You might be asking why this is what we've chosen to teach on in the midst of all that's going on in the world. Why look at rest? Why look at hurry as our key topic for the coming series? The short answer really is this: that as followers of Jesus and as human beings made in the image of God, we seem to be a long way from demonstrating God in this area of our lives. Most of us, if we're honest, don't know how to rest properly. We know how to stop. We know how to do things we enjoy. Yet very often we get to the end of them and don't feel restored by them. Even while we're trying to find time with family and friends, and the list of jobs keeps flying through our heads like it doesn't seem to ever switch off. Never seem to be able to just rest. And even if we do manage to switch off, like take a bath, listen to music, or do something that relaxes us, we live in this constant threat of a buzz from our phone, or an email from work, or a stressed friend in need of help, or a Facebook post that annoys us, or something always going on. And if we manage to avoid all of this and actually have proper time to unwind, our activities seem to only really delay the inevitability that we're going to go back to stressed, we're going to go back to strung out, we're going to go back to anxious. Almost as soon as the rest time stops, we can have a fantastic weekend, and then Monday morning comes and it just starts so quickly again. It all feels just like delay tactics. I'll worry about things later, the job can wait. In short, we seem to always be in a hurry. Dallas Willard wrote some fantastic books. He was asked by John Ortberg the question, what do I need to do to be the me I want to be? And Dallas Willard replied to that question, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And this matches up. It's so true that when we stop and give it thought. When am I at my worst? Is it Friday night, when I'm relaxing with my wife with no agenda, no deadline, and nowhere to be? Or is it Sunday morning when I'm supposed to be at church at 9:45 and it's 9:44 and the kids don't have their shoes on and I can't find my keys? When am I the worst husband and the worst dad? It's when I'm rushed. It's when I'm hurried. When do I look least like the way I want to look? When do I reflect the kingdom of God worst? Is it when I take a nice drive on a Saturday to the beach? Or is it when I'm late for work and someone cuts me up? See, hurry is one of the greatest threats to spiritual contentment and growth. But Jesus says something that cuts through all of this. You see, surely, as people who follow Jesus, we sometimes need to take stock of things that he said. Especially those things that can make us ask the question, is that really my experience? Now, one such thing that he said was this. He said, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. In the Message translation, Eugene Peterson put it like this. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Now, I've been following Jesus now for well over 2 decades, and that last line hit me really hard. You'll learn to live freely and lightly. I'll confess I haven't learned that. I've learned to be busy for Jesus. I've learned to accomplish things. I've learned how to juggle working full-time, being a husband, a dad, leading a church. I've learned how to go to God in crisis and in stress. I've learned how to let him be my provision and my support. I've learned how his grace is able to bring me back from burnout. But learning to live freely and lightly does not reflect the life I live at the moment. Most of us, when we're asked, most of us, when we're asked, how are we will reply instinctively with busy. Probe a bit, and often people aren't that busy. Sometimes they are, but often they aren't. What they really mean is, I feel unrested. I know that's what I mean. I'm tired and unrested and strung out, even though I spent 4 hours watching Netflix last night. I'm not really busy, but I need a legitimate sounding reason for why I'm so tired all the time. I can't say, how am I? I'm not really busy, just haven't really learned from Jesus how to live freely and lightly yet. Probably because I don't prioritize time with him or let him show me how to take real rest. So I say I'm busy. And I hope I'm not alone. But one thing I've come to notice as I read the Bible is this. God is never hurried, and Jesus is never in a hurry. From creation to new creation, God is not rushed. Even if you just take right from the start the Genesis story, God could have created everything in the snap of a finger. There's no reason for this story to not start the Bible with God created everything. But he didn't. He took his time. He took 7 days. He spent time preparing his creation, creating the heavens and then filling the heavens, creating the sea and then filling the sea, creating the land and then filling the land. He seemed to take his time over that. He even took time to rest at the end of it. You got the story in Genesis 2, the creation story in Genesis 2, that he says he walks with man. He doesn't run. He doesn't rush. He walks. God seems to live at a much slower pace than we do, or at least a much less hurried pace. Even with the big problems of this world, even with the huge things that you think really should have been a priority, which of course they were to God. If you take something like sin, sin is a big problem. But he doesn't just step in and solve it in a heartbeat. That's what I would do. There's a problem. There's a problem. Let's get it fixed. That problem happened yesterday. Let's see if we can get it fixed by next week. But he doesn't. God takes his time. He goes through the patriarchs. He goes through Israel. He goes into captivity and back again until millennia go by. And then Jesus comes with the atonement. He takes his time. And then, speaking of Jesus, he was never hurried. He's constantly being stopped. He's constantly being interrupted. He's constantly being slowed down and being with people. More importantly, he's constantly being slowed down intentionally to be with God. There isn't a day that goes by that he doesn't find time to spend with the Father. And he is busy. There's no doubt he's busy from one thing to the next all day long, and yet never hurried. He's always got time for the person on the side of the street who calls out to him. He's always got time for the widow whose son has died. Or he's always got time to be interrupted by a woman who's had 12 years of bleeding. He just always has time for people. Never seems to be hurried. You see, he has learned from his Father the unforced rhythms of grace. And he wants his followers to learn them from him. So why is it that God and Jesus seem never to be hurried? Why is that the way of their existence, the way of their life? John tells us that God is love. And he also tells us to love one another. Jesus says to love one another. More than that, to love our enemies and to love those who are trying to harm us. And love is unhurried. When me and my wife sit down for a date night meal, we're expressing love for one another. We give each other time. We don't set an alarm to know when do we need to start the main course? When is that the schedule? When is that the time? We don't get stressed if dessert hasn't reached the table by 7:45. We don't live to a schedule. We don't care if the meal takes 3 hours or more. We don't rush, because love is not rushed. Peter Gabriel sang a song where he said the book of love is long and boring. Now, I'm not sure about boring, but it is long. Love is slow. Love takes its time. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not in a hurry to get to the next thing. We don't commit to marriage for a year, like we might commit to a contract or to a job. We don't say we're going to put a time schedule. I will give 3 years to this marriage, and then the marriage will be done, and I'll have achieved marriage. We don't. We commit to life, because love takes that long. Now, God is love, and we are called to love as He loves. Even now, God is taking His time. His kingdom is being established through His people each day. He's working slowly to bring His easy and restful and light ways to this earth. He's restoring all things to how He intended them to be, and He is taking His time. He could do it instantly. He could do it quickly, but it's just not His way. He works through us because He loves us. So what's my point? I guess my point in introducing this series is to ask you to take an honest look at the life you live and ask the question, does this look like what Jesus promised? Does this look light and easy, unforced or free? If we are to change, we must first be honest and admit that there is a discrepancy between what we experience and what is promised by Jesus. We need to take stock. We need to see that since there is a gap, there must be a clue as to how to close that gap. And Jesus said it. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Get away with me. When was the last time you got away with Jesus? I don't mean 5 minutes in the morning or in the car on your way to a job. I don't mean fitting it in to your schedule because there isn't time otherwise. I don't mean, okay, I listen to some music in the car, or whilst I'm having a bath, I'll put some worship music on, or whilst I'm doing something, I'll do something with Jesus. When was the last time you just got away with Jesus? Just gave time. Jesus doesn't seem to say to do this periodically. He says it's a way of being. Get away with me. Walk with me. I think a lot of us sit with Him, and that's okay. Sitting with Him is great. Sitting with Him is giving His time, but walk with me. Me and my wife, we don't only do date night. We go for walks, because walking, it's a lovely thing to do with somebody. It gives space for conversation. It gives space. It causes you to probe what's going on inside. Work with me. Given everything I've said, there is a lot of truth to the fact that, do we keep Jesus out of our work? Is that why our work is so draining on us so much of the time? We talk about this expression, work to live or live to work. Maybe we've got the whole dynamic wrong. Maybe that's not the discussion. Maybe it is work with Jesus or work without Jesus. Maybe the issue isn't, I'm going to do my work so that I've got enough money to enjoy my time, or I'm going to put all of my time into my work because that's what I love doing. Maybe it's actually, if I work with Jesus, the work becomes a joy, and I know how to rest properly at the end of it. I know how to stop because it's with Jesus. But the key line, watch how I do it. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next few weeks watching how Jesus did it. I've touched on it a number of times in this talk, in saying, how did Jesus do it? He left early. There were times when he decided that spending time with the Father would be more restoring to him than spending time asleep. He was happy to be interrupted even when his followers wanted him to keep moving. He seemed to not live the life that looks like the life that I live, and the life I see a lot of my friends living, of just one thing to the next, never seeming to have enough time, and never seeming to be truly that happy in what we're doing. Watch how I do it. How does Jesus do it? How did Jesus live when he was on this earth? That's the question. Maybe the problem is not that Jesus' way is not what we had hoped. But I think there's more to this, that Jesus' way is more than a promise. I think many times when people come to Jesus, they come under the promise of something. They come under the promise of, your life will get better, your plan will be fulfilled, Jesus will meet all of your needs, everything's going to be fantastic. Maybe actually that's not what Jesus offers us. Jesus didn't say, I have come. Jesus didn't say if anybody wants to follow me, they're gonna live. He said if anybody wants to follow me, they have to take up their cross. And to take up the cross meant to die. It meant to give up who you are. It meant to give up everything about you. The person who took up the cross, that image in the first century, the person who took up the cross was somebody who had settled that they were going to die, that it wasn't going to be about them anymore. Jesus asks us to take up our cross and follow him. Maybe what I would say is, what Jesus' way is actually a commitment to follow his way. Not just the promise, but the commitment that goes with it. That we sometimes wonder, I've been honest today in saying, no, I don't feel rested a lot of the time. I don't feel like it's light and easy a lot of the time. Maybe that's because I haven't truly followed what he told me to do to get that. Learn from him, follow in his way, give time to me, walk with me. Maybe it's time with him that restores us, not Netflix or social media or any of the other things that we think does. In the book Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, Peter Scazzero identifies 10 signs of spiritual emotional unhealth. 3 of them directly relate to busyness and hurry. 2 of them relate to not really resting properly, and all of them are linked to a lack of intimacy and freedom to the Father. None of them are meant for people who follow the way of Jesus, and yet when I read that book, I'd probably say 9, maybe 10 of them were true of me. And I'm reading and I'm thinking, what have I gone wrong? But God's been speaking to me a lot over the past sort of 18 months, 2 years about this, with regards to the lack of inevitability over that lifestyle. It doesn't have to be that way. Richard Foster, in his book, Celebration of Discipline, points to practices that people who follow Jesus should put in their lives to live the life that Jesus has called them to. The hard thing about that book is every one of them requires time. It requires slowing down. The practice of silence or solitude or fasting or prayer or meditation on scripture or any of these practices require us to stop, require us to slow down, require us to find space or to make space. But where do we get this time? None of us have enough time. That's the problem. Now, over the next few weeks, we're going to look at how to build, or probably more likely rebuild, our lives around the time that it takes to follow Jesus. I will let you know now, you're not going to fit this into your current process. Your current processes, your current rhythms of life will probably have to change. But then if you think about it, it's the current processes and the current rhythm of life that are leading us to being the stressed out, hurried, strung out, burnt out, tired, busy, anxious people that we are. So maybe it's time for them to change. Maybe change is exactly what is needed. Maybe it's time for us to realign our lives with a way that is actually foreign to our world. The other thing about this is, it makes us so much more effective for the purposes of God. When we slow down, when we rest, when we know Him more, when we're more emotionally healthy, when we're more in tune with ourselves, when we... people want this. People are crying out for this. If you look at advertising on the television, loads of it sells rest. It sells stopping because nobody gets to. This week, I would ask each of us to take some time to take stock. Each day, end it by asking, when was I at my best today? And when was I at my worst? No guilt, no condemnation, just honesty. When did I most look like the person I believe God wants me to be? When did I look least like that? My guess would be you will be most like that when the time pressures are least there, or when you are giving time to God and to His purposes. When are you least like that? My guess would be when you are hurried, when you're against the clock, when you're rushed, when the pressures are building, when the stresses come on. Life will have stress, life will have pressure. But when we learn the purposes of God, when we learn the plans of God, it breaks that inevitability that we started with. The inevitability of it's just delay tactics. Yeah, I can slow down, but I'm going to be stressed again. When we learn the rhythm of our life that puts God in the midst of it, teaches us to slow down, teaches us to give time, it will infest the rest of our lives. See, this is what the disciplines do. The discipline of fasting, for instance, will discipline your food. If you fast regularly, the rest of your week your food will be disciplined better as well, not only when you're fasting. When you discipline prayer, the rest of your time, the rest of your week has God more focused and more central to it. When you discipline your money, maybe through tithing, when you discipline your money, more of your money is used for the purposes of God, even beyond the purposes of the discipline. When you discipline your rest, the rest of your week looks more restful. You are less stressed the rest of the time. You are more like the person God wants you to be. So I'm just going to finish with that line from Eugene Peterson's translation in The Message. Are you tired, worn out, or burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Doesn't say, keep company with me and you will become free and light. It says, keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Learning takes time, but we get there. And finally, just want to remind us of the analogy that we've often used with regards to discipline, which is this. If I wanted to run a marathon, I could not get up tomorrow and run a marathon. I could not run 26 miles. I'd probably get 5, 6, 7, 8 miles in and then I would die. Or I'd get 12 miles in and then I would die. Or, possibly, there would be a miraculous intervention and I would make it the 26 miles, but if I ever wanted to run that marathon again, I would require another miraculous intervention to do it. Now, if I want to run a marathon, if I want to be the sort of person who can run a marathon, I need to run what I can run. I need to run 5k, 6k, 7k, wherever my starting point is. And having learned to do that, I need to learn from others who can run further. I need to train. I need to slowly build up. I need to say I am where I am, but I am not staying here. Until eventually I will get to a point in my training, in my running, where running a marathon may still be very, very difficult for me. It's never going to be easy. But it is now something that I am capable of doing because I have learned and trained how to do it. For different ones of us, we will be in different starting places when it comes to rest, intimacy and hurry. Wherever you are, start where you are. If you can manage 5 minutes a day because your brain simply will not switch off, start there. But don't stay there. Learn how to live freely and lightly. Thanks for listening.